I feel like they really thought about. Happy video day, guys. So for today's video, I picked up 2 new products that Morphe just finished releasing, and I'm super excited to give you guys my first impressions on these 2 products. One of them I was pretty shocked that Morphe is even carrying, and the other one just kind of caught my attention. So I'm talking about the 35G Bronze Goals palette, as well as the Morphe new Glamazon. What is it? Glamabronze Bronzer. So I've got the Glamabronze Bronzer, Glamabronze Bronzer, and this palette right here. So I'm super excited to do a first impressions on both of them for you. I actually had been waiting for these for quite a while. I did order them from Morphe right when they released, but it took a little bit of time to get down to me, but I finally got them here. So we tried on all of them together. That's how I came up with the look that I have on my face right now. Have to say, I think I'm having a pretty good makeup day, so I am pretty excited about that. And also, before we get into the video, guys, I do have a giveaway going on now. If you guys want to enter into that giveaway, all the information is down in the description box. But let's go ahead and let's get right into these items so I can tell you guys everything that I'm thinking. So let's first start off with the 35G. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys is the packaging. So when you do get this palette, it does come in a normal cardboard packaging, and when you do take it out, it is bubble wrapped, at least the ones that are coming from Morphe. So it does keep it nice and secure. Once you get it out of the bubble wrap, you do get your nice palette from Morphe. Now this palette does have the same exact design as the outer packaging did, and I have to tell you that I actually think it's a pretty nice packaging. I mean, it is cardboard. This is not hard. I know some of the other Morphe palettes are coming like in that hard plastic. This kind of reminds me of like the Jaclyn Hill palette, that it kind of is like a just cardboard. But it is a nice package. It doesn't feel, it feels very lightweight, but at the same time, this does feel sturdy. It does feel like it's not gonna break. I actually like this packaging. It's pretty nice. I do love the design of it. I love that it has all these colors in it. I love the scheme. I think it's a really cool, very eye-catching palette. And then when you get to the inside of the palette, you do reveal all of the colors, and there's such beautiful colors inside of this palette. So inside of this palette, you do get 35 different shades. I do see a few colors in here that are a little bit repetitive, but for the most part, you do get a lot of bronze tone colors, and the shimmers that you get in here in the metallic foil shades are real colors that look really good with these bronze tones. Like if you guys look at it, look how cohesive it really is. Like they really thought about a good layout for this palette. I feel like everything was laid out really pretty. I feel like the colors in here all go really well together. I do feel like there is a few tones in here that are a little bit repetitive. Like I probably would have wanted maybe a different tone or two in here, but I do think for the most part it's a very beautiful color scheme, and I really enjoyed that about it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read you a few things that Morphe says from their website, and then after I'll show you guys how I got this eye look. So on the website it does say this is a limited edition collection. It says bronze out and keep on glowing with these beyond creamy, highly pigmented, super blendable shadows. A tantalizing mix of shimmering coppers, matte browns, and glistening golds. This palette is totes goals. So it does say that inside of it there is some metallic shimmers and mattes. So for the most part in here you get a bunch of different finishes. You get some mattes, you get mostly a lot of metallics, and you do get some shimmering shades. To me that 22 out of the 35 are basically metallics. The rest of them are made up of shimmers and mattes, and I think there's only like 2 shimmers in here. I could be wrong about that. For the most part, you are getting a lot of metallic shades, so just keep that in mind if you guys are somebody who's planning on getting this palette. It is primarily metallic. So I have some thoughts about this palette, guys. There is some things that kind of went a little bit off with the palette, and then there's some things that I really liked. So when I was creating this eye look using this little clear sheet that they put in here so that you guys can know the names, I like that, but at the same time, it's like I just lost it. So I'm gonna have to like tape it to here because I'm gonna lose it again. So what I did was I first jumped into this color right here called Sandy, and I put that all over the lid. I feel like that color was basically the same tone as my skin. I wasn't able to see it like vibrant enough, like it kind of just like kind of blended in. So I grabbed a little bit of Deserted and added that a little bit more just to kind of like deepen up the color. I feel like Sandy and Deserted are very close in tone. That's probably one of the colors that I probably would have switched out in this palette because I do feel like the colors are very similar. So after I blended that out of my lid, I kind of of just put that down as a base color. I went ahead and decided to kind of like deepen up my crease. So I used this color right here, Record Temps, and I put that in my crease. So I was kind of focusing more on the outer edge and then bringing it into the crease and then bringing it up. That way I can kind of start adding a little bit of dimension to my eye, but I already knew that I wanted my outer edge to be the darkest. So after doing that, I kind of already had a pretty little tone going on. So then what I did was I jumped into this color right here at the corner called Heatwave, and I just added that color to my outer edge, and I was just trying to give it like a more chocolate looking color to the outer edge and just start darkening it up. I feel like all of those colors blended really nice. I wasn't really having too much of issues, and I thought, okay, this is pretty decent. Then I jumped into this color called Burnt. Now this is the only color here, Burnt, that gave me an issue. This one here is a matte color that has like speckles of sparkle in it. When I started putting that onto my outer edge, I was having a little bit of a harder time blending it out. It is a really rich dark chocolate color. I don't know if it's because it's such a rich dark chocolate color or if because it's a different formula because it has those sparkles in it, but I was having a little bit of a harder time blending that one. I had to go over a few times, and I kept on blending it. I went to a different brush and blended a little bit more. I finally got it decent enough that I was able to move on, but that I can say that I had a perfect blend with this color, I actually didn't. I feel like I didn't get it to blend perfectly until a step that I did at the end. I already kind of have framed my eye. I knew the dimension that I already had created, and I needed to find the shimmers. So what I wanted to do was do kind of like a sunset shimmer, a sunset metallic. I grabbed this color right here called Hotness, and I started to place that one towards the outer edge to kind of keep the darkest shade towards the outer edge. And I started to discover a few little issues while trying to grab this shade. First, I tried putting it on a brush, just a flat brush, tried to pack it onto my lid. It wasn't working dry too well. I didn't really like the color. So then I went ahead and grabbed a brush and I sprayed it with some Fix Plus, thinking that that was going to solve my issue. I do have some other Morphe palettes, and sprayed brushes usually really does the trick. I feel like I saw a lot more pigment come off when I used the sprayed brush, but it was not like usual. So I feel like some of my other Morphe palettes, when I do spray the brush and I kind of put it on the lid, I feel like it really gives me a lot of impact. And the Jaclyn Hill palette, guys, that's a completely different formula from other Morphe palettes. I am 100% sure of that already. I do have other Morphe palettes that do not work the same as Jaclyn Hill, and this palette does not work the same as Jaclyn Hill either. The 3502, I feel like when you spray the brush, the shimmers or the metallics do go on the lid really easily. When you spray the brush with this one, it is not as easy. It's still not attaching that well. It wasn't for me. So what I ended up having to do was use my finger, and I honestly feel like, guys, this is a finger painting metallic palette. Like, if you use your finger and you dip into here, you are gonna get a pretty nice payoff. But with the sprayed brush, I don't feel like it was picking it up, and I really feel like it was not picking it up at all with a dry brush. Like, I wanted to see impact, and I felt like I was getting color, but I wasn't getting like what I see in the pan. Like, I wasn't getting this, you know what I mean? I want this on my eyes. I feel like it was duller. When I used my finger, that is when I started to see the color come off, and I was like, okay, now I see it, now I see it. And I feel like it's one of those palettes that the shimmers really you need to use your fingers for. There's pros and cons to that. The cons are you don't have as much control with your fingers sometimes when you're trying to do real detail work. So that can be a little bit tricky when you're using palettes that work best with your fingers and not as good with a brush. Then I grabbed into this one. I tried the same thing. I sprayed the brush. I tried putting it on dry. Sprayed the brush. Then I used my finger and I'm like, okay, well, there it is, you know, and it took a little bit. It's a little bit of work. This is not like super easy. Like, I feel like I had to work with these metallics to really build up the color. And then finally I tried this color here. I feel like this color here was the hardest one to pick up with a brush. Even when I sprayed the brush, usually you can see some of the pigment on the brush. I feel like even spraying the brush, I was like, where is it? Why isn't it? It wasn't attaching, you know? So I tried using a different brush too, and I still had the same thing happening. But then when I put it on my finger, it was like, hello, there you are. It gets on my finger so well. So I used my finger and applied it to the inner corners of my eyes, and I feel like that did the trick. For the lower lash line, all I did was grab this color right here and kind of smoke out the lower lash line. Didn't want to do too much craziness. I did grab a darker brown tone, this one right here, and then just outlined the lower lash line. And then at the end, I just wanted to kind of put this one here in the inner half of my eye on the lower lash line. Sometimes I can use these metallic shades if you spray a brush and you can kind of like dab them into the lower lash line and it looks so pretty and you just get like this like glisteningness under the lower lash line. This one did not work well with that. I tried spraying the brush, I tried picking it up, I tried putting it there. It was not picking up on the brush and it wasn't really sticking. So in order to kind of like just get that effect, I needed to dab in my finger and just kind of like go like this. And I was able to give it what I wanted, but it was a little bit harder to work with. And then I just highlighted with this highlighter right here in my inner corners, and I did put that on a normal pencil brush. When I was kind of dabbing it into the inner corners, I don't feel like it gave me a huge impact, and I feel like it's the same issue. The metallics in this palette only work well with fingers. Like that's just like the only conclusion that I can give. Fingers did the trick. And I will tell you guys at the end, I love the look I came out with. I think the look is absolutely stunning. I think the colors together look beautiful. I did have a little bit of that blending issue with that darker shade that had the little shimmers in it. But how I fixed that is I just jumped into this matte that was right next door to it. And after the whole eye look was done, I kind of used that one to just blend out the outer corners. And I was able to get rid of a little bit of that unblended look. But I feel like that most of the mattes in here, the ones that I used, blended good. There was that one that I was not a huge fan of. Now, there is a lot of other colors in here, so I haven't used every single one of these colors. This is a first impression based off of the look that I created today. So there is a chance that maybe some of these other shimmers, like maybe even some of these bronzy tones will work really good with a wet brush. But the ones that I particularly used today, only fingers. So I do like this palette for the price tag. It's not perfect. It has issues, but it actually does a really good result. And I really like the look that I came out with. And I can imagine people coming out with some beautiful looks with this. For $23, you're able to come up with some really pretty looks. You have to work a little harder than maybe my Charlotte Tilbury Icon palette that I just finished getting. That's a $65 palette, but when you put those metallics on your eyes, it's literally like gliding on, you know, and this is not like that, but you're paying a lot less money. You're getting a lot more colors and you have to work a little harder. If you don't mind using your fingers, I think that this palette is pretty damn good. I don't mind using my fingers. I use my fingers a lot. Like in the Huda Beauty palette, I feel like the metallics only work good with fingers. It doesn't look that great with brushes either. I don't love that there's not a mirror. It's a little bit of a pain that there's no mirror, but I mean, I guess that's the way they're able to keep the prices down. But you know, for such a big palette, you know, you kind of want a mirror if it's so big, but I guess you can lay it on a table in front of you like this and then, you know, just use the mirror that's in front of you. Now, let's talk about the color selection really quickly because I do want to point this out to you guys. There's a lot of brown tones in here. I mean, obviously it's called the Bronze Goals palette. I mean, like this is a bronze theme palette. The only thing, I feel like there's a lot of brown shades in here that on the eyes translate to the same color. Like in the pan, they might look a little different. When you put them on your eyes, they kind of blend into like the same color. What I wish they would have done with this palette, and I think what they're missing, is more of the deep mauve looking colors. I wish there would have been some mauves in here or more mattes in the mauve family and taking out maybe some of these browns. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, a lot of the base tones are gonna have to be brown because that's what you mostly have for matte. So that's the only thing that I wish some of these lighter brown shades would have been switched out for maybe some of those type of shades, and I think it would have been even better, you know? And we didn't need so many metallics. Like these two metallics right here are almost the same. You know, like this one and this one, the tones are almost the same, you know? So like there is some colors in here that I feel like are a little bit repetitive. So I need to play with it a little bit more. I think quality wise, it's okay. It's not like the best quality, but for the price tag, I think you're getting a decent palette. I think you're getting pretty colors. I think you can come up with good looks. So for the most part, it's decent, but it is only $23. So for that reason, guys, I do think it's a decent palette. So if you guys are looking at this one and you want to try, Ulta has it right now. So I do think it's it's worth a shot. But let's jump into another product, and I was actually pretty excited for this one. This one here is the bronzer. So this is the Glamabronze, and it does look like this. It's actually really pretty, and it does have a nice little mirror. So then when you do get this one, it has that same outer carton that looks very similar to the palette. And then in the inside, it was bubble wrapped for me. And then once you take it out, the outer packaging is actually really pretty. I like the way it looks. It does mimic the actual palette itself. It has that cardboard exterior. It's not super luxe, but it's nice. It has a nice little mirror inside, which I actually was pretty shocked about. And if you look at this pan size, guys, this pan size is really big. Everybody knows this palette. This is the Omega bronzer from Marc Jacobs that everybody, I think a lot of people own. They're very similar in size. I think the Marc Jacobs is still a little bit bigger, but just so you guys can see the size of this bronzer, this is not a small bronzer. It's $19. So it's not inexpensive for Morphe. I was kind of like, 19 bucks for a bronzer from Morphe. Then when I saw the size, I was like, okay, I kind of understand now. So I did apply this one on my face today as well. I will tell you guys that I was a little bit scared of the undertone because it did look a little bit orangey. There's 3 shades in this. There's the fair, and then this is like the light medium, and then there's the deep. This one here, I feel like it's a pretty undertone. I like them to go a little bit more ashy. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera the difference. This one here, it looks actually darker. It's not that much darker. It's just more orange toned, and this one's a little bit more of a tan tone. This one got very close to being too orangey, but when I applied it on my face, I started getting a little bit more into it. It blended out really good. I do feel like it has a little bit of an orangey undertone. I don't know if it's my favorite bronzer color for me. I don't think it looks bad. I actually think it looks very pretty, and on camera it looks even better than I even think it looks in person. In person it looks a little bit more towards the orange tones, but it does look nice. It's definitely a bronzer worth trying out. I like the way it blended on the skin. I think it gave a nice kind of tan impression. I do think my Marc Jacobs bronzer look works a lot better. I also really love this one here from Pretty Vulgar, so I can kind of show you guys the undertone. If you compare it to this one, can you still see how this one goes a little bit more orange than this one does? And it kind of does translate that way a little bit on the skin. I looked at the fair one. I don't think the fair one would have worked for me because it just looked too light. I probably would not have seen anything. So the bronzer to me is nice, but I don't know if I like the color on me personally. The blend worked really good, but I'm not sure if I'm loving the color of the bronzer. For the most part, I think that there was some stuff here that's really good about these items, and there's some stuff here that I'm like, about these items. I would definitely tell you guys that worth a shot would be the palette. Definitely is worth a shot. The bronzer might be a hit or miss depending on your undertone of your skin. It depends on what kind of bronzers you like. So I definitely think that these are worth trying out. I'm not gonna say either one of them is bad because it definitely blended good. It looked good on the skin. This one I was able to make it work, and I came out with a beautiful eye look. For me, I would say out of the two of them, the one that least impressed me is the bronzer because of the color. I was hoping that it would have been a little bit less orange, and it came out to be a little bit more orange than expected. So yeah, that's where we are, guys. I will let you know, of course, like always, in the weeks to come, what I'm finally thinking of these products after using them for a while. But for right now, that's where we stand. They're basically okay. So anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give me those thumbs up and leave me your comments below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.